Hello and welcome. You're on the Nation at 5. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to start with some numbers. Any guesses? What is the drug haul by the BSF in the last 3 years itself? Any guesses how big this menace is and how multifaceted this menace is? The recent inauguration of a psychotropic drugs and narcotics lab in Ahmedabad by Home Minister Amit Shah is a very, very small dynamic in a large problem. Have a look at this number and then we'll put matters in perspective as to how serious an issue this is for us as a country, not just as a social evil, but as a method of waging a war against us, of not only rendering us hollow internally by killing our next generation and rendering them useless, but on the other hand, using the money from here to wage a war against us. Narco-terrorism is another aspect. Now look at this. Since August 2018, so just about the last 3 years, the total drug haul is 57,157 kilograms. A total net worth of more than 5,500 crores, ladies and gentlemen. That is the haul in the last 3 years. In the last 1.5 years, it's skyrocketed, and more than 60% is in the last 1.5 years itself. Seized August 2020, July 2021, 14,570 kilograms. That's the drug haul. And the value is at 2,801.93 crores in the last 1 year itself. And in quantity terms, marijuana or ganja is 53,000 kilograms. And the value of heroin in terms is 5,516 crores. This is the total haul in our country, and this is just about 3 to 4% of the actual drug haul. Brown sugar, charas, or that is cannabis, hemp, opium, poppy, they are also part of this list. And there are also psychotropic aspects to this, and psychotropic tablets and other aspects. There are still crackdowns which are happening. What started with perhaps around the time of the demise of Sushant Singh Rajput, today now has snowballed into perhaps a dimension which is huge, which is immense. That when you block the Hawala racket, ladies and gentlemen, even as B.V. Kumarji joins us, former NCB chief, B.V. Kumarji, even as the Hawala route was blocked, now they are using drones to ferry bricks of heroin. 1 brick of heroin or 1 kilogram of heroin is 1 crore rupees plus 3 bricks of heroin is 3 crores, and you don't even need to use the Hawala route. Look at the threat, and then the kind of people who have been recruited into this are all drug addicts, and it's the lure of drugs. This is a huge challenge for us, right from Jammu Kashmir down all the way across our country, length and breadth. B.V. Kumarji, good evening.
Yes. Yeah, can I come in, Mr. Anand? Thanks for the
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, please.
See, what's important is not the last 3 years figures. What I'm worried is in the last few days or in the last 2-3 weeks, a spate of seizures have happened in the country.
Yeah.
One was the Delhi Special Police Cell involved in prevention of drug trafficking. They seized something like 354 kilograms of high purity heroin, which according to them is valued at about 2,500 crores. But what is frightening is that they found out international ramifications where Canada, Portugal and Afghanistan were involved in the whole racket. And I'm very sure even Pakistan would have been involved as a major facilitating transit country. The second seizure that took place where Karnataka, Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, all the 3 states were involved. Yeah. The NCB made a huge seizure of psychotropic substances and other drugs, valued at more than 2 crores. Yeah. And here also they found that the drugs came from Afghanistan and they were processed and stored in Madhya Pradesh in a town called Shivpuri, which everybody knows. And the last month, another big international racket was busted, and 22 lakh psychotropic substances tablets were seized by the NCB, and 45 kgs of similar psychotropic substances were seized. Then Coast Guard seized 19 bundles of narcotics off the Jakhau coast, which again are heroin only. Then DRA in the JNPT, that is the Nhava port, they seized it in the containers what was declared as talcum powder, 380 kilograms of heroin, high-grade heroin. Now, what worries me is that all these drugs mostly have originated in the Pak-Afghanistan border. And here, another important factor is the changing political, sort of geopolitical changes that have happened in Afghanistan, particularly after the Taliban has taken over Kandahar, and probably within a short time, they may occupy most of 75 or 80% of the country. Now, one of the things which most of the organizations fighting narcotic drugs and drug trafficking are aware that when an insurgent operation or any such a civil disobedience movement or any such thing takes place, the funding comes from the sale of the narcotic drugs. The case in point which I would like to refer is when the Bank of Trade and Commerce International, through whom the CIA was funding the Taliban and created the Taliban and funded the Taliban, initially was from the dollars which they remitted through the Bank of Credit and Commerce International. But subsequently, they told the Taliban, now you finance yourself. You have a lot of drugs. Export them, do whatever you like, and then finance your operation. At that point of time, the Taliban was asked to fight the Russians. The scenario has changed. Now the Taliban has taken over most of the country, and particularly the provinces where a lot of cultivation takes place is Helmand province. And according to the latest report of the UN, what I saw is that there was about how much it was earlier, earlier 61,000 hectares was under cultivation in 2019 of opium. Now it has increased 224,000 hectares. Imagine the amount of, from that opium, how much of heroin could be cultivated. And it's a very simple process. They have to only add what you call certain chemicals to, and even ordinary drums are enough where they do the mixing, then immediately you get the heroin. And now in this changing scenario, the first target will be India. Because we have slowly emerged from a transit country into a consuming country. And we have seen the problem was faced in what you call in the present Punjab, and in the drugs coming from Nepal, we have faced it in the Bihar and other regions, and coming from Burma or Myanmar, we have faced it in the Northeast region. So a lot of states are affected. That is what we have to be reckoned with in the future while formulating our policy for fighting the drug trafficking. We cannot see it in isolation. We have to see it in the context of how the money generated in drug trafficking is utilized in fighting, funding the terrorism. That is where the real problem arises.
True, a war against our country using our own money, and it is also furthering the intent of those who want to push radicalization into this entire region. The last time the Taliban became a force, we also saw a huge amount of social strife and cleansing which happened in Jammu and Kashmir. The entire strife was timed around the time the Taliban got aggressive there, and now this time, and this also is totally rendering an entire generation or two of youth, of youngsters, were absolutely ineffective. You know, our recruitment into, and these are the key catchment areas, the border areas, and these areas are catchment areas for recruitment into our forces, those who will protect and guard the country. And that is also seized as well. This Lakshadweep also, sir, what came out, 300 kilograms of heroin seized, about 3,000 crore. This was in April. That is also add to that list. And you're saying there is a sudden influx of these drugs here. Somebody is consuming it. Where is that happening, and what systems can be put in place? Yes, the ante has been upped in cracking it down, but still they are entering the system through our borders, which are patrolled by the BSF, the Coast Guard, and the forces.
Now, you have mentioned only the land frontiers. Imagine the Seer Creek, which is one of the very close to our Gujarat border, Gujarat Sea. I mean, from Pakistan, it can easily be smuggled from that side of Pakistan to Indian Gujarat coast or Kutch coast particularly. Similarly, Lakshadweep is one of the easy targets because by the sea route, we have not much of a patrolling in that area. Lakshadweep being a very peaceful island and other things. But once it reaches there, it is reshipped back to the mainland. Because there's a communication between Lakshadweep and Kerala, and particularly Cochin. So that either it can be used for re-export or alternately for being consumed within the country. One more aspect which you have not mentioned in your summing up in the earlier sentences, not only the money generated in drug trafficking is being utilized for financing terrorism, but for the radicalization of the youth, which you mentioned. And in the recent bust which was done in Lucknow, where they found out certain the Muslim organizations were converting the Hindus into Muslims. That apart, it's also going for financing the Maoist activities in borders of Andhra Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh and other places, and to a certain extent Bihar. There we are facing a major problem with the underground Maoist rebels, but their finance is coming from the drug-generated money. And what I would like to emphasize is the network that is built up between a radical red movement and the drug traffickers. Because there's nothing like the Maoists believing only in Marxism, because they want for that money, they are prepared to do any other what you call franchised activity and things like that. That the organizational network comes between the radical left and the radical Islamist organizations.
True. B.V. Kumarji, I have paucity of time today, but we have a commitment that we will take this story forward, and the right perspective this weekend will be focused on this drug menace and how we need to wage a war on drugs. And I request you to please do join us on that to give us the right perspective here on this entire war on drugs. For the moment, thank you very much, Mr. Kumar. Always a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you, sir. Meanwhile, moving on, ladies and gentlemen, Jammu and Kashmir Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha ji also raised the security concerns due to thousands of kilograms of drugs being smuggled into India via porous borders and more recently even via drones from Pakistan. He was also concerned that it is not just men but also women, youngsters across the gender in the youth who are getting addicted to these drugs. Listen in. ड्रग्स का जो खतरा है ये डायमेंशन तो और भी खतरनाक है क्योंकि इसका जो इफेक्ट है, डैमेज जो है वो बहुमुखी है।
ये पिछले काफी समय से ये कोशिश हो रही है और मैं समझता हूं कि नारकोटिक्स और आर्म्स ये ड्रोन से गिराए जाएं, काफी पकड़े जाते हैं, लेकिन युवाओं को गलत रास्ते पर ले जाने में इसकी पर्याप्त भूमिका है। और जैसा मैंने कहा कि ड्रग के शिकार काफी हमारे युवा हो रहे हैं, युवतियां हो रही हैं, उसका भी एक कैंपेन हम चला रहे हैं और इन युवाओं को उससे बाहर निकाल करके इन्हें रोजगार के अवसर कैसे मिले, इस दिशा में प्रशासन पूरी तरह से मुस्तैदी के साथ काम कर रहा है।
इस पर थोड़ा सा क्या मंथन और थोड़ा सीरियसली काम होगा, क्योंकि कई जगह ये बताया गया है कि ये जो रिक्रूट्स हुए हैं वो हेरोइन के एडिक्ट्स हैं या ड्रग्स, नशीले पदार्थों के एडिक्ट्स हैं और उस एडिक्शन से वो ब्रेन वॉश हो गए और उसकी वजह से उन्होंने जो गलत रास्ता अपनाया। और आपने कहा अब युवाओं में, युवतियों में भी ये फैल रहा है, जो कि ये समाज के लिए थोड़ा बहुत डेंजरस है।
ये वास्तव में बहुत खतरनाक है और इसके डायमेंशंस और भी खतरनाक है और इसको पूरी गंभीरता से यूटी प्रशासन ले रहा है। कई सेंटर्स हम स्थापित कर रहे हैं, देश के जाने माने विशेषज्ञों से इस पर चर्चा की गई है और हमारी पूरी कोशिश होगी कैसे युवाओं को निश्चित रूप से वहां से निकालकर मिशन यूथ के साथ जोड़ें और जो अनेक प्रोग्राम यूटी प्रशासन की ओर से रोजगार के लिए किए जा रहे हैं उनके माध्यम से उन्हें रोजगार उपलब्ध कराया जाए। जहां पुलिस बल अपना काम करेंगे, मुझे लगता है कि सिविल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन, ये दूसरा पक्ष सिविल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन देखेगा।
Do watch the full conversation with the Jammu and Kashmir Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha later tonight at 7:57 p.m. on the right stand. It's a CNN News 18 exclusive. And the LG, Manoj Sinha, also responding to Mehbooba Mufti's allegations on the sacking of 11 government employees, including the sons of Salahuddin. Listen in. न्यूज़ 18 से बात करने के लिए धन्यवाद।
नमस्कार।
मैं सीधा मुद्दे पर आता हूं। जम्मू एंड कश्मीर एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन में एक सफाई अभियान सा शुरू हुआ है, थोड़ा जरा विस्तार से इस प्रक्रिया के बारे में बताएंगे हमारे दर्शकों को।
आर्टिकल 126 जो जम्मू कश्मीर के संविधान में थी, उसके अंतर्गत भी ऐसे सरकारी कर्मचारियों के विरुद्ध कार्रवाई की जाती थी जो टेररिज्म और सेक्शनिज्म में कहीं न कहीं भागीदार होते थे। और मैं कहूं कि स्टेट के लिए किसी तरह से इनसाइडर थ्रेट के रूप में काम करते थे। और 2016 में भी ऐसे कुछ लोगों के खिलाफ आर्टिकल 126 ऑफ जम्मू एंड कश्मीर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के अंतर्गत कार्रवाई हुई थी।
पर आपने महबूबा जी का बयान तो सुना होगा, उन्होंने कहा कि बाप की गलतियों की सजा बेटों को क्यों दी गई, ये सलाउद्दीन के बेटों के हवाले से कह रही थी।
कौन किसका बेटा है ये मेरे लिए महत्वपूर्ण नहीं है। मेरे लिए महत्वपूर्ण यह है कि गवर्नमेंट के तंत्र में जो व्यक्ति काम कर रहा है उसका आचरण क्या है। और मुझे लगता है कि ऐसे लोगों के खिलाफ संवैधानिक कर्तव्यों का निर्वहन करना ये मेरी जिम्मेदारी है। और उन तमाम अच्छे और मन से काम करने वाले कर्मचारियों के मन में एक नए प्रकार का विश्वास इससे जागृत होता है कि नहीं, काम करने का इनाम है।
जी, लेकिन कहीं ना कहीं आरोप ये लग रहा है कि ये जो टर्मिनेशंस हुए हैं ये निराधार हैं, ये जो रेड पड़ी हैं ये एक पॉलिटिकल मोटिव के साथ हैं, लेकिन इसके लिए कोई साक्ष्य या कोई तथ्य नहीं है।
रेड से इसको मत जोड़िए, मैं आपको पूरी जिम्मेदारी से कह रहा हूं और दोहरा रहा हूं, जम्मू कश्मीर और देश के लोगों को भरोसा देना चाहता हूं कि किसी प्रिजुडिस, किसी पूर्वाग्रह के आधार पर किसी कर्मचारी के खिलाफ कोई कार्रवाई नहीं होगी। लेकिन जिसके खिलाफ पर्याप्त साक्ष्य हैं, स्टेट को जिनसे खतरा है, जो टेरर फंडिंग में इन्वॉल्व हैं, जो देश को तोड़ने में लगे हैं या सेक्शनिज्म और टेररिज्म को बढ़ाने में लगे हैं, निश्चित रूप से उनके खिलाफ संविधान द्वारा प्रदत्त अधिकारों का प्रयोग किया जाएगा।
Meanwhile, the Enforcement Directorate has summoned Gulshan Nazir, the mother of PDP President Mehbooba Mufti, in connection with a money laundering case. The money laundering case is linked to the recovery of 2 diaries that were recovered by the Enforcement Directorate after raiding Mehbooba Mufti's alleged associate. Hitting out at the government, the PDP chief alleged that just because she skipped the meet with the Delimitation Commission, now her mother is being targeted by the central forces. She has accused the government of using the central agencies as tools to settle scores. Mufti Islah now joins us. So politics continues to brew even as the authorities are doing their jobs. This has got nothing to do, frankly, if we were to look at the facts, Mufti, it's got nothing to do with the Delimitation Commission, because the ED is doing its own job, and these raids had happened even before the Delimitation Commission. But the PDP and some of the other leaders, who even the people of Jammu and Kashmir have alleged, have enjoyed the fruits of power while not passing it on or sharing it with the people. Will they find it a problem? Or is there a group which says, if they are really guilty, punish them, don't play politics around it?
Well, you can't separate politics with any issue in the Kashmir Valley. And clearly, whatever happens, you always associate politics. And precisely that is what has happened here. You talk to yourself about what Mehbooba thinks about this particular episode. She said that her family is targeted because she doesn't, she's not on the same page as Centre is on revocation, on restoration of Article 370 and 35A. And clearly, since she has taken an opposite view of that, Centre is really targeted not only her family, but also other political leaders. And today, what had happened at the Enforcement Directorate office, where I was parking and at least expecting Mehbooba's mother to turn up, she didn't. Now, we don't know what is the reason, whether court has intervened or whether Mehbooba's lawyer has advised her not to go there, or something has happened. But we really, wanting to hear from PDP side, or for that matter, Enforcement Directorate side, because both these people or both these, sides have not given their side of the story. But I'm sure that we've seen in the past the Enforcement Directorate is certainly going to slap another day, give another day to Mehbooba Mufti's mother, because she, according to Enforcement Directorate, is wanted in a case of laundering of money. And clearly what has happened, Mehbooba was also involved in this, according to ED. She was summoned sometimes in March. The ED sleuths were not convinced then, and that's why Mehbooba's mother was summoned today.
Right.
The case, let me explain the case a bit quickly. The case is about, when Mehbooba Mufti was the chief minister, she used to have certain discretionary fund as chief minister, or these are called the secret funds, and this is the funds which are spent on security. And perhaps in two of the diaries which the Enforcement Directorate people found on Mehbooba's associate, there it was found some entries.
Right.
And those entries, some suggest that it's plus 50 lakh rupees that have directly gone into the account of Mehbooba Mufti's mother, Gulshan Nazir. And that's why today Gulshan Nazir was really summoned by Enforcement Directorate, but she didn't turn up, and one really needs to now watch what happens next.
Right. And the Enforcement Directorate has claimed that they found about 70 lakh rupees in Gulshan Nazir's account, and the entire amount has been deposited in cash. So that's where the allegations stem from. We'll see how it pans out, the investigation. Thank you for your inputs, Mufti. Now to what is the CNN News 18 mega exclusive, ladies and gentlemen. We have learned through sources about the exact manner in which Salahuddin's sons were involved in terror financing and how they were closely associated with their father's terror outfit, the Hizbul Mujahideen. Both of them have not been picked, and just like the Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha said, that it is not because of any other partisan politics or any other reason, but because of hard proof. And here is the proof. Both Syed Ahmad Shakil and Shahid Yusuf got their respective jobs through backdoor channels, and both of them facilitated terror funding on numerous occasions. One brother on as many as 9 occasions and the other one in as many as 6 occasions. Sources say there were several evidences against them, but they were either suppressed or buried in the past, under governments under the past, and perhaps under the cover of Article 370 and 35A and a certain level of autonomy of how J&K functions. Now, this is how it ran in the family. It's not that the sons were away or did not agree with what the father was doing sitting over in Pakistan, working against this Union of India. Charges against the first son involved in terror funding on 6 occasions. Charges against the second son facilitated terror funding on 9 occasions. Conspired to wage war against India, received funding from his father's aid. The first son procured funds to carry out terror attacks, was in close contact with Hawala operators, and both of them, the allegation is that they used multiple identities to try and collect these funds at various times. In fact, the second son even changed the name of his father in the passport to go ahead and meet his father in Dubai in 1999-2000, and at that time he had gone with a Hizbul operative who then eventually defected to Pakistan and then now operates out of Saudi Arabia and is also involved in sending across money for furthering terror activities. So that's the coup poll of the day, and we will also take it up as the debate later tonight on the right stand after we put out the interview with the Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha. Naya Jammu Kashmir is the hashtag. The coup poll question is ending patronage to secessionists. Is that the right stand? 95% of our respondents on coup at News 18 is the handle taking the poll of the day have said yes till about 5 p.m. Moving on here on The Nation at 5. With just months to go for elections in several key states, electricity or bijli has become a focal point for political parties as they reach out to voters. It is raining freebies in the poll-bound states, with the Aam Aadmi Party convener Arvind Kejriwal promising free electricity up to 300 units, 24/7 power in Punjab, Uttarakhand, Goa, should his party come to power. Punjab Chief Minister Captain Amrinder Singh, in a bid to counter AAP's strategy, has revisited his earlier promise of free electricity up to 200 units. BJP state unit in Uttarakhand is also not far behind. They have vowed to give free electricity up to 100 units and 50% discount on the next 100 units.
सबसे पहली गारंटी, हर परिवार को हर महीने 300 यूनिट बिजली तक मुफ्त दिया जाएगा। आम आदमी पार्टी की सरकार आने के बाद आपको आजादी मिलेगी। Once this announcement is implemented, 87% of Goa will start getting zero electricity bill. We will start on a clean slate. पुराने सारे बिल माफ किए जाएंगे। ये हमने दोनों चीजें दिल्ली में करके दिखाई है। 24 घंटे बिजली देंगे, नो पावर कट।
Rupashri Nanda now joins us. So the Aam Aadmi Party successful in bringing the discourse to their turf. The route to power is via power.
Absolutely, Anand, you have put it extremely well. They have, in a way, set the agenda for Punjab and Uttarakhand. We have seen other parties also, trying to follow that line. And the Aam Aadmi Party's announcement has actually compelled them also to come up with a response. And in that way, it is defining the agenda. But remember, Anand, this is the Aam Aadmi Party's second attempt at forming the government in Goa, second time that it would be contesting elections. And last time, even though there was widespread support for the party had actually failed to open its account, which was a surprise considering the goodwill that it had generated. This time around, the party has learned its lessons. It has contested local elections also. It has opened its account only on one seat. Remember, the BJP actually swept the Zilla Parishad elections in Goa. But the Aam Aadmi Party chief over here today, apart from announcing the electricity, freebies, he also said that the Aam Aadmi Party promises to be an alternative, and he targeted both the BJP and the Congress for the kind of defections that have happened from the Congress to the BJP, repeatedly saying that even though the Congress was the single largest party, it failed to form a government. Its MLAs defected and joined the BJP, which even 13 seats actually went on to form the government over there, and is still continuing with the government over there. True. And therefore, voting for the Congress party essentially would mean voting for the BJP. And therefore, it is time to clean the politics in Goa. That is the political pitch of the national convener over there. It remains to be seen whether it is going to work on the ground or not.
True, absolutely. And one question that everybody needs to ask the Aam Aadmi Party is, what happens if my electricity unit consumption is 301 units? And it's not 300, and that's where the politics and the discourse lies, and the answers will clear up a lot. But if this is pushing organizations or political parties and administrations and state governments to ensure that there are no power cuts and that there is power supply, then why not? Everybody deserves that across the country. Moving on here on The Nation at 5, CNN News 18 has got the inside scoop of the meeting between Prashant Kishore and the Gandhis. The two sides discussed a host of issues, including elections for the president's post in 2022, for which NCP chief Sharad Pawar's name has been making rounds. However, now the NCP chief has denied discussing his candidature for the presidential post with Kishore. Meanwhile, sources have also revealed to News 18 that Prashant Kishore and the Gandhis also spoke about the internal issues within the Congress and the need for organizational restructuring.
इनको क्या है, अभी नए नए सेफोलॉजिस्टों को ठेका देने की कोशिश करेंगे। अब जनता पे तो विश्वास रह नहीं गया। इस तरह के जो है वो किराए के जो है वो रणनीतिकारों की तलाश चल रही है कांग्रेस में।
जब वो बाबुओं से बात कर रही है, पॉलिटिकल अपने नेता से बात नहीं कर रही। कैप्टन अमरिंदर सिंह यहाँ से वापस चले गए, मिलने का समय नहीं दिया। और उसके सलाहकार से बात करके आप क्या सिग्नल देना चाह रही हैं कि मुख्यमंत्री से इम्पोर्टेंट उसका सलाहकार है और मुख्यमंत्री के लिए समय नहीं है और सलाहकार के लिए समय है। अब बाबू गिरी पे भी उतर आई है कांग्रेस।
Many will have a lot to say, but the need for organizational restructuring, this has been spoken about since 2013, Pallavi. So what is it that Prashant Kishore is telling the Gandhis that they do not know already?
Absolutely. And the fact is that even someone like Mamata Banerjee agreed to listen to Prashant Kishore. The last time Prashant Kishore walked away from the Congress party was in 2017 UP elections. And in fact, he went on record to say that, Anand, that this is a party which is so stubborn and arrogant, and no one wants to listen to any piece of advice. It's very difficult to work with them. I don't think that working style of the Congress party has changed since then, Anand. There are too many groups. There's too much of cynicism. I wonder how many of the senior Congress leaders will even listen to some of the suggestions from Prashant Kishore if he's going to be giving those suggestions to the Congress party. Clearly, all is not well. Desperate time for the Congress because it needs to fight for its political relevance. You cannot be aggressive on social media or on sound bites. You have to back it up by winning elections. That's what makes a party powerful. And in that sense, the Congress party, I guess, needs and urgently a need for some kind of an advice on how to become stronger, face these elections, and more importantly, at least win some elections.
True. A simple question that begets is what is your vision for the country, and how is it better or different than what the Prime Minister is laid out as leader of the BJP or leader of the government at this point in time? And that's where the narrative has to shift, and that's where it has to all start once again. We'll see what happens in the days to come. Pallavi, thank you for your inputs. Short break here on The Nation at 5.